Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I'm KMBest. It's a time to look back on what we're grateful for. I'm grateful, of course, for the ability to do this, and a time to look forward to January's dragon-shaped data mines. First up is Shaolo the Undying, a 5'10", a crazy stat line with an ability that is an on reveal that gives the last card you played +2 power for each turn you played 2 or more cards. So at first glance, you might think this is a Thena card, and I think that's a really good way to look at it. Obviously, Thena cares more about exactly 2 cards, but I do think that this is a card that wants to go with cheap skills, stuff that comes off of Merlin, Kitty Pryde. Generally, that space of card seems to be what this guy is doing. Now, one of the things about Marvel Snap that is really common if you're paying attention is that 5-cost cards, as the general rule, don't see a lot of high-level play if they are stat sticks. There are really only a couple of stat stick 5 costs that you can reasonably expect to see. Zombie Giant Man is, of course, the most prominent of those, and then there's like a sort of sub-Zombie Giant Man group of cards that sometimes see play, but realistically not that much. These are, of course, your Darkhawks, your Ronin the Accusers, occasionally a Devil Dino, but not really so much in that highest tier. This means that most 5-drops tend to be the other kind of 5-drop, a 5-drop that you're playing mostly for the ability rather than for the stats. A Cannonball, a Cosmic Ghost Rider, an Enchantress. This kind of stuff tends to be the more commonly seen type of 5, Blink, Legion, in Marvel Snap right now. Now, that's not necessarily to say that Shaolo is not going to work because other cards like him have not worked, because what I think this card represents is the Marvel Snap devs really looking at that state of affairs and saying, all right, so clearly we are low in terms of the number of power that a card that is just stats and a 5 has to be giving you. And I think they learned that lesson actually with Zombie Giant Man when they gave him effectively 3 additional points of power and he still was just like really good and not broken. That is a card that I think probably informs a lot of this. When I look at this guy, I see a 5'16", a 5'18", a very large man. I look at him and I see, oh, well, 5'10" isn't the drawback it used to be, right? Like, oh, that used to be like kind of a bad thing. I look at him and I see, where do I want a 5'10"? So there's a bunch of different things to think of. I'm just going to list a couple of the synergies that really stand out to me. First off, at 5'10 plus, this is actually a card that a Scar deck probably wants. It is the kind of card that can make a bad 4 into a good 4, right? So let's say you like whiffed on your 410 or whatever, and instead you played something a little bit smaller, maybe a Gladiator or something. This guy can turn that into a bigger guy. Now, Scar is not a good deck at doing this stats kind of play multiple cards a turn thing, but it does strike me that that 10 could be something that is useful with Scar, with Surtur. There's a real world where you play this on 5, maybe you get some extra energy somehow, and it ends up effectively creating 2 cards that discount a Scar. That's not nothing. The other thing that obviously sticks out is there's already a lot of really good decks doing Kitty Pryde stuff, doing Merlin stuff. Is this going straight into the zombie package as a sort of alt Zombie Giant Man? Does it have the ability to afford being able to do that? Because when you look at decks that are going to play a lot of cards, those are decks that are going to play a lot of cards. But they're also decks that have really, really important 3s that you have to get down as early as possible. And so you don't get as much out of this card as you otherwise would. If you're doing that, are you going to invest further? Are you going to do like Absorbing Man? So you have Zombie Giant Man Absorbing Man or Shaolo Absorbing Man. That kind of stuff seems pretty cool too. This card, generally speaking, looks like what I would describe as about the power level necessary to make me sit up and take notice, a 5-drop that just does stats. Typically, I would be writing off this card based on its profile, but they have put so many numbers into this card that I genuinely do look at it and think there could actually be something here. They have finally recognized what they need to do to make a 5-drop stat stick actually stick. Kitty Pryde's Dragon Partner Lockheed, a 2/1 with an end of turn ability that says if you played a 1-cost card this turn, afflict an enemy card here with -2 power. Now, this is obviously a super sick card with everything we just talked about with Shaolo. Kitty Pryde, Merlin spells, all the cheap spells. Love doing all of that stuff with Lockheed. That means it might be a werewolf kind of card. That means it might be a Thanos kind of card. That means it might be any number of things. This is a card that is, I think, perhaps a little on the weak side, maybe, but largely that is due mostly to its stats and its inability to be very powerful late, and how the delta is very clear between how good it is early and how good it is late. I don't know if that is a good or a bad thing for this list. I do think that it is a very interesting kind of card. I think that it ties in very well with what the season is already incentivizing, and I do sort of wonder if there's maybe just too many things tying into not just Kitty Pryde, but like there's only so many times we could be like, all right, so the zombie package, that's a Kitty Pryde Merlin deck. Well, now we have these werewolf decks that are Kitty Pryde Merlin Deafening Chord decks. And now we add Shaolo into these decks. Now we have Lockheed into these decks. And it's like, all right, so now we have a Kitty Pryde Merlin Werewolf Deafening Chord zombie deck. Like all of this stuff is happening in the same deck or happening in the same archetypal space, right? Whether you're going to end up having to pick and choose the best power output options for those cards, right? Like that's going to be a pretty important thing. I do think that the fact that this card doesn't say here, like it doesn't say if you played a 1-cost card here, just a 1-cost card this turn, which makes it a lot more of a standalone scaler in a way that I think is pretty useful. But when you compare it to something like Athena, you're gonna need to put this specifically in a deck that is playing more than 1 card, basically, because Athena's gonna get all the procs that this would if you're playing 2. And you kind of need to make sure that you're willing to play off curve in that way. And I got to tell you, when I play these decks now, the fact that I have to play off curve enough of the time is already a downside. And I do like that while this does give me more upside to alleviate that downside, so I do think it'll probably be like a fairly useful card. I wonder if it might not be strong enough, all things considered, to actually make the cut. I think if it does make the cut, it's largely on cost. This costing 2 is actually like a really big deal because these decks really want their stuff to be cheap. They want that so badly. So I do think that that is the biggest thing I can say like in favor of this is just I really think that this card being cheap is a good thing for it, because if this was another 3 enabler, I would just be losing my mind right now. There are so many 3s that you have to play in all of these 1-cost decks or all of these like cheap spells decks. This is definitely, just by virtue of not being 3, going up a bit in my estimation. Majestic Wingbeat, another 1-cost skill. Give the leftmost card in your hand +2 power. If it costs 5, you also get to make it have -1 cost. Apologies, if it costs 5 or more. This is a card that there are 2 things that I think about with this. The first is, okay, is there something stupid I can do with Galactus in this? The second is, okay, is there something stupid I can do with Zombie Galacti in this? And I guess, 3 things. The third is this card just good enough to put in my deck? Like, am I just willing to play this card? This is a 1-cost spell, and 1-cost spells are just, they've been so good recently, right? Like, if I am a deck that already generates a lot of stuff, am I just willing to play this? It gets stuff out of my hand. I've got my Merlin rolling. I've got my Prowler rolling. I have so much crap in my hand. I need to get rid of it. I need a werewolf proc. I need a proc on a zombie Scarlet Witch. Am I willing to just be like, I'm werewolf, I'm zombie Scarlet Witch, I'm the zombie package, I'm Shaolo, and I'm just the rest of my deck is spells? Am I allowed to do that? Like, is that a thing I can do? I really wonder, because this is a really interesting card, because it's hard to evaluate how that matters. I just spent a while talking about Lockheed in the context of there's going to be like a hard choice as to like what goes into this deck. And I do think that this might not make it in that context, but I think that there is something to be said for this just being like, basically imagine America Chavez, her current iteration, but doesn't take up space on the board. And the reason that's important is because a lot of the time taking up space on the board is just actively bad. And it gets even worse in certain contexts where you really need to be able to put your power on the final turn into the lanes where it actually needs to go. And if you've taken up a space on the board with a 1-2 like America Chavez, well, that kind of sucks. I kind of feel like when I look at this card that this is a card that is power creeping America Chavez, which is weird because it's not actually providing more power, but I just put that much value on not devoting a board space to a 1-2. It is actually, I kind of think, that important in the way Marvel Snap is currently constructed. It's rare to see a card that makes me go full stop, huh? What's going on here? But Dragon of the Moon is a card that makes me go, huh? What's going on here? I can't figure out a way to make this make sense. Like, maybe you just play it and that's it, and it's just like good on rate and you're just playing it. But every time I think about building my deck around this, I have like an instinctive revulsion, which is like, I'm going to build my deck around this and I'm going to get a large guy out of it. Oh, I get like a 3/14. Wow. Awesome. I love that. That's so game winning. I definitely don't lose to anyone doing a combo deck if I'm doing this. Like I don't see it. I don't see it with this. I also think it's notable, and I didn't think about this before this card came out, but when you talk about cards you really want to steal power from, the cards you want to steal power from the most are the cards that double, right? Like when I look at this card, I think, oh, I can steal power from a Deadpool. I can steal power from a Human Torch. Like that. Those are the ones where that's like really, really extra impactful because we just aren't in a metagame of Marvel Snap. People are doing like fair stats. Like nobody's playing like a copycat and be like, beat my 3/5. Everyone's doing synergy stuff now, right? And that means that this kind of deck is like, this kind of card is just like woefully outdated. I can't even find like a sort of edge case where I would want to be doing this. Yeah, I would rather play Scorpion and Cassandra Nova and pretty much anything that I'd be contemplating doing either of the parts of the thing this card does, I suspect. Lin Lie Iron Fist adds the Sword of Fuxi to another location. He is, of course, a 2/2. The sword, also a 2/2, and it has an ongoing ability that gives Lin Lie 7 power if they are at the same location. I think this is kind of cute, right? Like, oh, okay, this is like a little soft Madam Web payoff. I'm not overly sold on this, right? This isn't like the world's greatest thing of all time, right? Like you can do this with a Ghost Spider, make sure the Ghost Spider, but that's using up 3 slots at the location. I think this is a card that runs into location space issues way, way, way too much. Because it's like, yeah, okay, if I play Lin Lie and then next turn I Ghost Spider him to the location the sword spawned on, that's not a small number of points, right? Like, that is 14 power, right? But it's 14 power for 3 energy. That's really good, but it's taken up 3 slots on the same location. That's not good. I do wonder at what point this card is like best understood as one of those cards in Magic the Gathering that just has like a really stupid body on it and then like a notable like, oh, at the end of your turn you discard a card, right? Like this is the Marvel Snap equivalent of like a rotting Regisaur, where it's like this is just the biggest guy for a very low investment. But also, even when you pull it off, it's like still not that great for you because of various card advantage and or board space mechanics, right? That is what I think of when I think of this guy. But then you start thinking like, all right, look, dude, like, I don't care that there's 3 spots filled up here. I have a 214. I mean, it's like a 211, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like a 211 is not nothing. And then you have to start thinking the other way of like, okay, it's not a guaranteed 211. You're going to need to deck build around this. So when I think of like a space this guy could go in, I think the like Iris Madam Web thing First Steps deck probably really wants this guy. Like this is a that's a deck that like doesn't necessarily have enough giant men in it for it to make a ton of sense. I think it could very easily be the kind of thing where it's like, I actually do want that guy. I want to be doing this kind of stuff. I have all of what I need in order to make that happen. That's a deck that I can see wanting this. It's a pretty specific niche, though, and I do think that this guy is going to be a bit of a niche card. Okay, so this guy is maybe the most broken card I have ever seen in Marvel Snap. Shang-Chi, Master of the Rings, looks like old Sam Wilson, but better. I will break down why I think this. Game start, add the 10 rings to your hand. When you play him, upgrade their power. The 10 rings are this. 2-0, end of turn, give one of your other cards here +1 power. The upgrade just makes it say give all of your other cards here +1 power. I think this is actually a straight up design mistake. There is an entire class of cards in this game that aren't bad, but people think of as bad because they simply don't have the right partner. And those cards are very often very good, but hard to enable, right? And the cards I'm talking about here, Clea. If you get a Clea proc every turn, that's pretty good. The only way to make that happen right now, though, is you have to play Marvel Boy, which is pretty bad. If you get a Sebastian Shaw proc every turn, that's pretty good. But the only way to make that happen right now is to do some really awkward buffing stuff, most of which happens in hand. There's actually like no good way to do that right now. So yeah, I guess there's just not really a good way to do that right now. Oh, okay. Well, what about Superior Spider-Man? Oh, well, I mean, that would be pretty awesome if I could have him guaranteed every game. Well, now you can. This is what I'm getting at. There are a lot of cards that were previously balanced around their enablers. And these cards are a bunch of stuff, right? Like there's a bunch of like cards that were balanced around being pretty hard to actually make work. This card gives you an enabler that starts in your hand every single game. That is insane. There is a debate going on as to whether or not the game start text means it's an additional card or it takes up a spot in your hand. And while I think that might be important to this card's power level, what I will say is, in the worst case scenario of this card taking up a spot in your hand and making your deck bigger, it is still completely insane. Completely. Now, the reason people are debating about the game start text is because I think if you actually go look at like the cards that say game start, none of them are worded exactly like this. But the one that is worded the closest to this is Quicksilver, where if you look at something like Dormammu, it says add the card to hand. This doesn't say that. It just says it starts in hand, which is the exact same text on Quicksilver. And I'm not sure which one it is, honestly. Like, that's the risk of data mines, right? So that's why I'm framing it the other way, which is to say, even if it's the bad one, this is probably the best card of the season. If it's the good one, this might be the best card they've ever made. I think that it has to be the bad one because there's no way they're making the good one, right? Like, if this card says, get a thing that turns on every card that scales off of getting individual boost procs, that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing to put on a card. You have that every game. If it is Domino and it takes up that draw, it's still ridiculous because that whole deck is predicated on you need a good mix of enablers and payoffs. And they were just like, what if you had an enabler every single game? This card is like if Sam Wilson, Captain America, didn't say, oh, you get the shield at the beginning of the game. It's like if it said, Sam Wilson starts in your hand. Like, that's what's going on here. Like, that is the level of card that we're talking about here. We are talking about a 20 power Sebastian Shaw for absolutely nothing. We are talking about always having access to the card Superior Spider-Man whenever you want it. We are talking about a Clea spell every turn. Any one of those is worth doing, and you get them every game. It starts in your hand. I'm not even talking about like the upgraded version. Just the 2-0, give a power to something every game. Every game, you're going to have one of those cards to go alongside it. You're going to have the entire game to do stupid shit with it. This card is nuts. This card is really, really good. It's really, really strong. And I don't know why you would make a card that says the things this card does in the context of those other cards existing. It's just every single game, you're going to get something that was previously gated behind enablers happening to you 100% of the time. Not like card gamer 100% of the time, which actually means like 70% of the time. Actual 100% of the time this is happening. I don't care if this card is domino. It's messed up. And that is to say nothing of the fact that, okay, yeah, all right, cool. You know, I played my rings. You deafening chord my rings. Guess what happens when I play Shang-Chi? They transform into a different card that is no longer deafening chorded and also is better. The card is really good. The card is really, really good. I think, you know, maybe we could be in a combo meta, right? Like maybe that kind of stuff keeps 320s from mattering too much. Maybe Shadow King keeps this from mattering too much. Like I can believe that in the metagame we're currently in, which is move gets to a jillion power and Shadow King is everywhere, that this kind of thing, maybe it still ends up being a little small ball. But what I can't believe is that it stays like that forever. Like this card is just fundamentally breaking too many damn rules for it to ever not be incredible. One of the strongest cards I've ever seen. All my Foomers out there gotta be excited. Fang Foom 712 on reveal. Get the power of your opponent's front row cards here. This is just okay, imagine if they made 7 cost Sage. That's what this is effectively, right? Like it's just the biggest guy ever. It just says 7 energy, win a lane. All that's super cool. Here's the problem. This is a Hela card, and I don't think it's legally allowed to be a Hela card. I'm not looking forward to this because it is the most Hela card of all time. Hela, of course, cares deeply about costs. They basically gave it an Infinaut at 7. So now you bring back the Infinaut at 6 and also the Infinaut at 7. This card is super duper duper messed up. It is the most insane Hela card of all time. And I think it really sort of goes to show, like, they got to do something about Hela because I can't imagine anyone has fun playing this card normally. Like, this is just a card that if you have to pay the actual 7 for, you're not necessarily throwing, but, like, the realistic use case for this card is you're going to Red Wing it. Maybe you have Electro in your Red Wing, so if you have to pay 7 for it, you can. But you're going to Red Wing it, and you're going to play Hela. And those are going to be the things that get done with this card. And that sucks. Like, it sucks that it is so much more efficient to constantly cheat this stuff out than it is to actually play it. I very fully expect this to be a Red Wing and Hela card. And, you know, sometimes the Red Wing deck, maybe it'll have the War Machine Electro stuff in it. But yeah, you're going to blink this out. You are going to Red Wing this out. You are going to Hela this out. You are not going to pay 7 energy for it more than 10% of the time. And yeah, brutal. Pretty awful. Great buff. Yay. Oh, check it out, dude. It's another way to cheat a Fang Foom out instead of actually playing it. Let's go. Yeah, no, this is like other Dracula, right? That's kind of what this guy's doing. It's like, were you playing Drac Dump? Check it out. You got Drac 2, and that's what this guy's here for. Oh, Red Wing Dracula Dragon Lord, don't mind if I do. Like, there's definitely gonna be some things where it's like that, like, oh, okay, my deck is like approximately like 5 ways to cheat a big guy out, and then like 6 big guys, and like that's the deck building strategy. It's not the worst thing I've ever heard. He can do it. It's just, you're probably going to get outpowered by the decks that are cheating harder than you, and probably move. This is a sort of fair ramp card, so to speak, in as much as anything like this is like a fair card. It is on the lower end of power output relative to the true combo decks, but it should stomp all over a lot of mid-rangey stuff in reasonably interesting ways. I think this is a pretty exciting card, a pretty interesting card. It does some fun enough things that I am okay with it being made. Contra Fin Fang Foom, because like, do something about Hello, please. It feels so much more ethical to have like Red Wing and this do big guys on you. You know what I mean? It just feels so much more ethical, even though like with a certain volume of like Red Wing and Dracula in this, it becomes less ethical. But at least they're putting in the work at a 1-for-1 rate, right? I think that this card is probably going to end up on the weak side, not through any fault of its own. It's going to be good at doing its job. It's just its job isn't going to be very good. But I do see that people will probably play it in those rampy Drac decks. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I've been KMBest. You've been phenomenal. And I'm thankful for you and the ability to continue to make content and make that my job. I really appreciate it. So as always, like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one.